An ordinary street in the Auckland suburb of Meadowbank. But one of the people who lives here is anything but ordinary. Charles Alldritt came to New Zealand back in the 1930s, in the Depression time. He turned his hobby of printing into a profitable business. He became a writer and an illustrator. And now he prints all his own books right here in his own home.
This is the first book I ever wrote in 1965, and I've tried to write at least one a year ever since, all on different subjects. I don't like to repeat myself. The Clone, that's fantasies. Thinking about thinking philosophy. More pamphlets. Mythology. Having a go at Malcolm Muggeridge. Poetry. Poetry for my grandchildren. And this I'm particularly proud of. It's Japanese poetry and my own artwork and lino cuts.
Charles, what started your interest in printing?
Well, I was self-taught, but it was a matter of necessity during the Depression. I bought a little Adana printing machine, and it would only print cards. So I went door knocking and sold these cards for 2 shillings and 6pence for 50, and that's how I started printing. But I've been in printing ever since, so that I'm not really, I was an accountant really to begin. I'm not a printer, no more than I am an artist or a poet, but I like dabbling in all these things.
And who do you distribute all your books to?
They're mostly direct. A few bookshops, but I haven't got much time for the bookshops. Do you know, it's easier to sell a book in an antique shop than it is in a bookshop, because it's the only book there. So that's the best way to get rid of books. This is the first thing to do with printing, of course. You have to have the type before you can print. A little bit of a hair space in there. Now, you might find the case itself rather interesting. I'll put that down a moment. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W, X, Y, Z. 2 letters missing, the J and the U. The reason being that the J and the U were not originally in the alphabet. There were only 24 letters. The I and the J were the same letter, and the U and the V were the same letter. So when they added them to the case, the printer was not going to change his case, so he put the J down there and the U down there, and they've been there ever since. By the same token, we should have 2 C's and 2 G's, hard C and a soft C and a hard G and a soft G. Anyway, we'll now take a proof of this just to see what it looks like.
Now, that's this machine over here.
Yes, this is a proof press. Now, for a little ink, so that we can see what it's all about. Now, we'll find some paper. Take a proof. No, it's a bit stiff. I've put some oil on it one day.
Oh, that is magnificent.
Ah, how do you look?
I look magnificent.
Well,
wonderful.
Now, while we're proofing, I'd like to show you one of my little pretty pictures that I like playing with. You can build things with type. Put the paper over again. Take another proof. There we are. We have a little railway train, all made out of pieces of type. O's, even the ventilators on the top, they're parentheses. And my little fish made out of parentheses and a few O's. Now we'll get down to some real work. I'll introduce what we call a chase. It's a frame, really, for putting in the type for printing. I'd like to print for you a little sketch of mine. It's tied up with a bit of string, sometimes difficult to take off, but if you're not careful taking it off, you're in trouble because all these bits of type are separate and they're liable to fall apart. And then you have a lot of fun trying to get it all back together again. Put some spacing material around it. That one won't go there. That will. Lock it up both ways so that it will not fall out. And now we're ready to put it on the machine and do some printing. Yes, now we'll bring the chase.
So that's...
This is the chase, the
chase.
Frame. Put it into the machine. Now we've got to have some power. Try and keep my hands clean to handle white paper. Doesn't always happen.
Well, this is a pretty important moment, isn't it, when you get your first proof?
Well, yes, sometimes it takes quite a lot of adjusting after the first proof, but I gave this a dummy run first, so that I think it's fairly well in position anyway. We'll just see. Oh, yes, I think that's all right.
Oh, that looks good.
Look at that, all right.
So what are all these different things doing here? I can see...
Well, now, yes, we'll try and explain.
Around.
Well, first I should explain that here is a bar with controllable sucker arms which picks up the paper, and when the paper is picked up, it is gripped by these grippers on the windmill, taken around, printed, and dropped over here.
Well, you seem to have taken over just about the whole of your basement here.
Yes, this was my daughter's flat once upon a time before she got married.
Was it? What's
yes.
this here? What
Oh, this is a very old type. It's wooden type, all carved onto wood.
Where was that made?
In England, and I'd say it's about approximately 150 years old.
That must be very rare, isn't it?
Well, I think it's rare, and as to the value, I wouldn't know. It's probably priceless, but I had it given to me.
Not the sort of thing you could pick up these days?
No, I doubt it.
No. What have you got over here? Is this the lino printing department?
This is my playground, where I do my lino cuts. The lino cuts are made from ordinary thick brown lino. Now, these are the only tools I use for lino, a V-shaped chisel and a very sharp penknife, so that after drawing what I want to cut out, the instrument I'll use first will probably my little V-shaped chisel, which has to be very rigidly controlled, otherwise you can make a big mess of it. Now, here is a finished lino cut, and there is a print of it. Here's another that's perhaps a more dramatic one. And here's one of my favourites. Those are my two grandchildren on Waiheke Beach.
And Charles, you certainly have a lot of books here. Do you have any favourites?
Not really. I'm pretty Catholic in my tastes. I like new books because I think any philosophy over 10 years old is already out of date. But I like the old books because you can find some interesting things that people have forgotten about. I bought this Encyclopedia Britannica new about 30 years ago, and as you will see, I've worn it out and had great pleasure in doing so.
Yes, you have. You've got new books over here too.
Oh yes, I like to keep abreast of the times. In fact, any book that's over 10 or 15 years old I consider is already out of date. But still, it's nice to know how they thought in the various ages. These are some of my more modern books. William Sargent, Battle of the Mind. Edward de Bono, he's worth reading, he's a nice fellow. He calls it whole thinking, or I call it whole thinking, he calls it lateral thinking. Big Ambidextrous Universe, the Dead Sea Scrolls, that's good. Banish Hoffman, Strange Story of the Quantum, that was marvellous. Straight and Crooked Thinking. The Identity of Man by Bronowski. The Naked Ape.
Even now, after the passing of the turbulent years, the quiet days, the joyous and the sad, the ecstasies, the heartaches and the fears, the times of laughter and the grief I've had, no bitter ashes of regret remain. Still do I love the radiance of the dawn, feel the caresses of the summer rains, still breathe the perfumed incense that is born from blossoms on the wind. All this remains. And you, my darling, you are all of this. You are the dawn, the sunshine, and the rain, the angel's benediction, and the kiss that brings the promise of new life again, even now. Well, Charles,
I like that.
That's
I like
it.
that. I like that very much.
A little heavy, the heavier side of the holy state of matrimony. Let's hear some of your lighter views on the matter now, could we?
All right. I'll give you my pardida.
Splendid.
Matrimony, ceremony, lots of money, alimony, ignominy, not so funny. Don McRae and I are active in 3 writers' groups. Monogamy. I find participation in these and other groups essential, otherwise I would become too much a hermit. Encourages a bigamy or rapturous polygamy. Might even make a mug of me, or ruin or disfigure me.
I like those.